Today we're looking at the calculator and adding some more buttons to the calculator and getting them organized. I want to show you how to rename the buttons in your calculator. So here, for example, if I want to take a look at the properties here, there's the text, but what we're looking for is the name of it. Right now it just says JButton 5. When you're working with controls, especially ones you're interacting with, you should give them a meaningful name so that they represent what their function is. Usually I say BTN for button, and then I write out what the button's supposed to do. So again, the hope is that you've done this already. I'll quickly do this right now. So doing UI stuff, it's just really tedious. This is the part of coding I don't like. So over here on the left, it gives you a list of all the button names, and so you can pick the ones that still need to be worked on. So next I'd like to fill in this panel on the left. There's different functions I'd like to be able to supply with this calculator. What I'm looking for is operations that require only one operand. So just one argument going into the function. Drag in another button. We'll line it up on the pane. And we'll size it to the width of that pane if you're using panes. Here we want to do the reciprocal. So 1 over x. That only requires x, so that's a pretty good choice. So I might as well rename it here. Next, I was thinking the square root. So I'm going to pull on another button. And here's where I run into a problem. Is I want to show that on the button. Problem is I can't type in square root. I want to show the symbol for square root. And there's no way for me to really type that in. So what I do is I go out to the internet and I say Unicode, square root of x. It's amazing how it reads my mind. So what's the Unicode character for a square root? Now remember, Unicode is a code page that has every symbol from any language anywhere on Earth. Every single character is represented. Here's the code that you can use for square roots. They give it to you in lots of different versions. Here's hexadecimal. Again, we just want to grab this little symbol. I think I had to put it on a page. Right there. So copy it from there and put that in your project here as the name, or it's the text on the button. Now I can paste it in here. Now the font that you're using needs to support this character. Not all fonts do. In this case, this will work. Other options, if you have a way of creating a picture of the equation you're trying to show, you can do it that way. This is probably a little simpler. The next button, I'm thinking x squared. So again, back to the internet. So here's the superscript 2. And we can grab that number by showing it. Here's the test page. We can grab it right there. Now our button looks nice. Now other functions you might consider that are single operand functions for our calculator here, I would imagine you might want to include sine, cosine, and tangent. So I'm going to add those now. And if you have other functions you'd like to try, Using this kind of setup, you can put those in, but remember they have to be a single operator just to start. We'll learn how to do binary operators in a bit, but for now we're going to keep it simple. I'm going to scoot these down a bit so they line up with the buttons a little bit better. Actually, I'm going to grab that. Scoot it down to there. Looks a little cleaner. I guess the next step for us is to add the numbers. So let's try that. First of all, this is going to be a little bit strange because even though we're entering numbers, what's really going on behind the scenes is we're going to be adding text to this 0 up here. We'll translate it into a number once they hit equals or hit one of the operators. But until then, it'll be a string of numbers. Let's start with the number 0. So what we need to make is something called an event handler. We've done this in the game design class where we had, events, like two things would collide with each other, or the user hits a spacebar or an arrow key. We're doing the same thing here. Wiring up an event handler, though, in Java is a little bit more complicated. What I'm going to do is just double click on the button. And it takes me to the action performed event. That's right here. So button 0, action performed. This is where we put our code in, what we want it to do. But we'd like to put the symbol 0 into our input field. Our input field, let's go back to the design view, is this one here. And its name is just called text input. So what we want to do is just add a 0 to the end of the string that's already there. This one's kind of a special case because we're going to start out with a 0. We don't want to put another 0 there. So we have to test for that. We can say if txt input dot I'm looking for get text, I think. Here we'll actually say not equal to 0. Then what we're going to do is we're going to append a 0 to the end of the string. We'll say this. It's not very efficient, but I think it'll be clearer. We say text input dot set text. See if they have a set text. It makes sense. Yeah, there it is. And here we're going to append on to whatever's in there. And we'll paste on that 0. So there's the first one. We'll test that in a second. We could try it now, I guess. That looks nice. Not quite lined up, but we put in a 0. Doesn't look like our test is working out. Let's do the 1 button next. So I go back to my form, double click on 1. This one's a little simpler. We really don't have to look. We can just add it to the end. So again, we're going to do this again. And we'll put that in here. This time we'll put in a 1. So we're not adding it to the left side, we're adding it to the right side, which is kind of weird. Let's try it. Put in a 1. 1's being added. 0's being added. Yeah, it looks pretty good. It's starting to look like a calculator. So I won't bore you with the rest of them, but you'll have to do that for each of the number buttons. Maybe put one other button in. So I'm going to put in a 2. Again, this line of code is you go out and get the text, whatever's in there already, and then use the concatenation operator to paste on the 1. In this case, it'll be 2. And then store that back as the text for the text box. Single line of code does a lot.